It was a late autumn evening when HOA Karen attempted one of her most audacious moves yet. She had called my wife and me, demanding $20,000 under threat of arrest. Her reasoning was as flimsy as it was absurd. She claimed we had violated some obscure HOA regulation and insisted on immediate payment. Karen's arrogance was staggering. She seemed to believe that her threats alone could compel compliance. But she had no idea who she was really dealing with. My wife, a decorated police chief in our county, was quietly listening to Karen's tirade as I calmly prepared the necessary documentation. Karen had no idea that her threats were about to backfire spectacularly. The moment Karen finished her demand, my wife stepped forward, not in anger, but with the calm, commanding authority of someone who knew the law intimately and could enforce it decisively. "Karen," my wife said, her tone measured but unmistakably firm, "you have no authority to make these demands, and your threats constitute harassment and extortion. I suggest you cease immediately before this escalates legally." Karen, who had expected a terrified or compliant response, froze. She stumbled over words, her voice quivering as she tried to justify her demand. She had assumed she could intimidate an ordinary homeowner, but she had not anticipated that my wife had the authority, experience, and confidence to turn the tables completely. Before Karen could react further, my wife calmly documented the call, recorded statements, and notified the local authorities about the harassment attempt. Karen's phone calls, which she had assumed would intimidate us, had now become evidence in a potential criminal case against her. The audacity of the situation was stunning. She had tried to extort money and now faced exposure and legal consequences. By the time the authorities arrived, Karen was already reeling from the realization that she had miscalculated completely. The officers reviewed the evidence, listened to the recordings, and assessed the situation with professional scrutiny. It was immediately clear that Karen had crossed the line. What she had intended as intimidation had instead become an airtight case of harassment and attempted extortion. Neighbors, who had often witnessed Karen's dramatic confrontations, were both shocked and relieved to see her humbled in such a definitive way. She had believed that threats and self-appointed authority were sufficient, but she had underestimated preparation, legal knowledge, and the power of someone who truly understood law enforcement. The aftermath was swift. Karen faced immediate scrutiny from the HOA and local authorities. Her credibility was shattered, her power within the neighborhood diminished, and her reputation tarnished beyond repair. Meanwhile, we ensured that our property, finances, and family remained secure, and that Karen would think twice before attempting such brazen intimidation again. Reflecting on the incident, it became clear that her downfall wasn't about brute force or confrontation. It was about expertise, preparation, and calm authority. Karen had assumed she could bully, extort, and manipulate, but she had not accounted for the fact that my wife had both the knowledge and the resolve to respond decisively. By nightfall, HOA Karen had been thoroughly exposed, her threats neutralized, and our family remained safe and unshaken. The lesson was undeniable. Aggression and entitlement can only succeed against those who are unprepared or unaware, and when met with strategy, authority, and legal expertise, arrogance crumbles rapidly.